Alright, here we are with the second video in the Adapting the Nothing Man by Jim Thompson series. I just finished reading chapter number 8, so this video is going over chapters 5, 6, 7, and 8. We're taking these 4 chapters at a time. Got my handy dandy notebook, and I didn't take too many notes, to be honest. I just kind of wrote down the major sort of beats of what have happened in these chapters, and I did not write down all my thoughts on what to change because it is still pretty early in this book. What are we on? We're on page 80 something. Let's take a look. So we're on page 88. That's the first page of chapter 9, and this book is 239 pages. So we're on page 88 out of 239. Still a lot of the story to go, and a lot of mystery going on, and it's ramping up right now. Chapter 5 involved, I'm sure all of you have seen the first video, so I'm not going to go over all the context, but our main character, Clint, has, Chapter 5 starts out with him having an argument with his wife, and he's afraid she's going to tell about his missing pecker. It's kind of hard to say that with a straight face. But then he kills her with a bottle, and then he burns the body. So, as far as chapter 5, I did think it was interesting his sort of psychological problems with, because he was in the war and there was some unspecified accident and he, lost his manhood. He doesn't really have a penis anymore, and he's really afraid she's going to tell. And that is something that I could see handled sort of in a goofy way in anybody else's hands, but I kind of feel like reading Jim Thompson and the way he writes about it, it actually is very serious. It never really comes off as goofy. I will say, though, the only thing I did not really like about this conversation with his estranged wife, Ellen, they are still married, but they've been separated for, I believe, 3 years, is what it says in the book. The only thing I didn't like is that we have too little of her. Now, the book is from first person, and it does start at, a specific point in this man's life where everything's about to go wrong. And in this chapter is when he murders her. And I just feel like if we're adapting this into a movie, okay, I feel like we might have to open with a different beginning for the book. I feel like I would like to see a little bit more of things, in the good times with them. Like, why are these two together? So I feel that in the screenplay, the adaptation, even though, like I said, I don't have the rights to this, so I'm not writing an actual screenplay, but we're just going to talk about, really, if I did it. If I did the screenplay, how I would approach it. And I think there's so much opportunity here to make their argument and their conversation really hit if the opening of the movie was to be a bit more romantic, a bit more like the good times before he goes off to war. In the adaptation, I don't know if I would really keep it as being set in like late 40s, early 50s. This book's from 1954. I wouldn't put it in modern day by, there's just no chance of me putting it in modern day by any stretch. But I would maybe keep it like a little bit more ambiguous, so we wouldn't know what war it is or necessarily what year it is. I kind of like when things feel more timeless, so I really wouldn't call it World War II or anything. But I just feel if we just started with like that last great day or last great like week together, and maybe there are like hints of a conversation with like him not wanting to go, not wanting to leave her, and then he has to leave for the war, and then something in the war like changed him, and then later we could find out what it is. I feel like that would I think that would just like make their argument here before he kills her just like hit just like a little bit more. So that was chapter 5. Chapter 6, he has an interesting journey home. Maybe I'll read you guys I might read you guys a paragraph of it. So for context, if you guys didn't watch the first one or just didn't remember, it's in a fictional town called Pacific City. I think it's in California. There are mentions of LA and stuff, but Pacific City's like a coastal town, and then there's like a little island that you have to take like a ferry or a boat out to, and he takes like a rowboat when he goes out to kill her. And this is like after he's killed her, which when he killed her, he hit her with a bottle over the head. Then he poured out the alcohol, struck a match, kind of burns up the room. So this is, and he's drunk. And so this is chapter 6. The first paragraph here says, "It was still pitch dark outside, still raining a downpour, but the wind was dying and the worst of the storm seemed to be over. I pushed the boat into the bay and hopped in. I started to row, and then slowly I let the oars slide out of my hands and drift away into the darkness. Let the boat decide, I thought. Leave it to the ocean. They brought me here, now they can return me, or not return me. I wash my hands of all responsibility." I thought that was very interesting. I thought it was very well written. So I'm just sharing that part with you guys. So in chapter 6, he has his little journey home, and then he gets a visit from the chief of detectives, who he was just drinking with in chapter 4, I believe. Detective Stuckey. I do like the last name Stuckey. Not saying it's the best last name. I think it's good, but the detective's first name being Lem, it was just like really cringe. I don't know. Maybe Jim Thompson and maybe Jim Thompson himself was drunk when he was coming up with the names in this book. But he comes by and yada yada, your wife's dead, and they have a very interesting argument over it, because the officer thinks that Clinton did it, and Clint is actually throwing out some good arguments for why it wasn't him. It was pretty convincing. Although I do think it's a little bit goofy when a character is just easily able to convince a cop, like, "Oh, no, it wasn't me, I got the wrong guy." But there was a very interesting point where, so his wife Ellen at some point had regained consciousness and reached into her purse and found a typewritten poem that he had written for her years ago. And she died. They found her clutching the poem in her hands, and he basically kind of says that could be any poem by anybody. It's not in anybody's handwriting. It's there's no name signed to it. I thought that was pretty interesting. Now the room apparently didn't go up in a blaze, everything's destroyed. But I just kind of wondered how the paper didn't really burn up, which led me to think maybe it could be a little bit dreamlike. Maybe there's some opportunity for some dreamlike situations. So I just jotted down the word dreamlike to think maybe there could be some strange things like that. Who knows? Chapter 7. So this is the same night still. It's the longest night on Earth. After he kills his wife, and then he, goes on the boat ride back home and takes a shower and everything, and gets the call and the visit from the detective, and then his editor, this is okay. It's a small town, so maybe this might make sense. But his editor and publisher from the newspaper come over, and I jotted down the word friends, because maybe they could be friends. Maybe he and his editor earlier in the book, maybe they could have some more friendlier scenes. Right now, the main character is just kind of an asshole, and then they kind of visit him "We're so sorry for your loss." And I get it, it's a small town and all, so people are friendlier. Maybe that would make more sense. But I think it would be even better if we could set up some more friendships with these characters, and maybe they have bar scenes, or I don't know, a scene at the batting cages, or just something to show that these guys are pals, so that way if one of them has a tragedy, it makes a little more sense. Because I was just thinking, I know it's the 50s and a small town, but it just seemed a little odd, if word is spreading that his wife died, that suddenly his editor and the publisher would both be "Well, let me go on my way and visit you at your house at midnight." And that's pretty much my only real notes for chapter 7. And I jotted down again that it does need more Ellen, more of that character, really, to make any of this situation hit. Because if somebody just kills a character and we don't really care for the dead character, it's really kind of hard for us to care about any of the situation. So I just feel if we could set her up more in the screenplay version, in the movie version, that would be just great. Chapter 8 is really, it's a bunch of filler where he cleans his house. And then he kind of just really decides to set up one of his co-workers he doesn't like, named Tom Judge. Tom Judge was in one of the earlier chapters. I did not mention him in the previous video because all they had was a tiny argument that lasted for I don't know, half a page. and he didn't really seem important. I honestly just thought that character was more for like texture, because sometimes, you know, you might like name a character at the workplace or at wherever they go, and that character might not have like a whole arc and come back later, but they might just kind of be there for texture, just like, you know, this is the guy I argue with at the office. That's kind of what I thought that character would be. And then right now at this point in the story, Clint is kind of like putting a few things together, like maybe if I say this or that, like maybe I could like frame this Tom guy as he's the killer because people think I'm the killer. And that's honestly where we left off, or that's all we get from where I left off with up to chapter 8. So I can't say anything too crazy has happened yet. I can't say I even have a complete and total grasp on the story yet, because I don't know really where it's going to go from here. He's killed his wife and he's trying to frame somebody else. That could be interesting, but I can't totally say yet what I would do with this, because I just feel like I need like a little bit more information so far. And I don't want to like come up with too many threads and throw out too many things, because I haven't gotten to the end of this yet. And I know normally if you're adapting a book, first you read the whole thing all the way through and then you start talking about changes, but just for the sake of doing this video and not having the rights, I feel it'd be cool to just, you know, go along with as I read it and as my thoughts come to me. But I don't honestly have a whole lot of thoughts for these last 4 chapters. There's a lot of interior narration, and I feel there are opportunities for new scenes, for earlier scenes. Like I threw out the ideas of having almost, I guess in a way, a prologue, but not technically a prologue, with him and his wife and like the last, you know, part of the good times before the war. I did suggest having some scenes with him and his editor to show them more as like buddies, but that's all just like prequel stuff that doesn't really kind of have anything to do with the last 4 chapters. But it's interesting. We'll see where it goes, guys. I know this one's a little bit shorter than the last one. The last one I feel like I had a lot more to say because I was like setting everything up. But, you know, next one, hopefully we'll have some more ideas by the next one. So, anyways, guys, thank you all for watching. And we'll be back hopefully tomorrow or the day after with the next video with part 3. Thanks.